first thing I would like to do is to orient you to what you have in front of you. The first thing you have is the schedule, so that you will know in hard copy, you will know what school will be presenting next after you see a particular school. So that's your first item. Then you have a single page copy of last year's test scores for our elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, so that you could be able to look at that as they talk about this year's scores. And then the large document that you have is a copy of each school's presentation that they will bring to you tonight. Yours is in color, mine and Mr. Brown's are in black and white because we were conserving there. So unless you have further questions, I would like for you to remember that on a hard copy in front of you, you have a district and 2015 and 2016. It's a black and white copy. And you have a 2015 line on the left hand and a 2016 line on the right hand. And at the bottom, you see my handwriting where it says accountability, and there's a strike through that. So that's what I want you to know that is gone. You will never see that again. The accountability tab has been taken off the school report card. So that information there, that's the last time that you will see this, because we're moving into a completely new system from this point on. At our next meeting, we will go into that. All of the scores that you will see tonight, including those on the single hard copies, are assessment scores only. So it's not an accountability score, it's an assessment score. The scores from the district that you received earlier this week from Mr. Brown, they have only the proficient and distinguished students together. That's the score that you have, because that's where we need to be. We only put the proficient and distinguished scores combined on those. So on this from this point on, we will only look at assessment scores, and that's the only tab that you will see on the school report card. So the schools are going to present their information to you as they wanted to. I don't want to tell them how to do that. We gave them a frame. They looked at what happened last year when they presented, or their predecessor presented. They're going to tell you the scores in each content area, and then they're going to tell you the why they did well, why maybe they didn't do so well, or any other information that they wish to share. And then they're on to the next steps, or how are they going to achieve proficiency with all students in their building. Some schools have chosen to use the apprentice score with their data. So if you see something that I gave you and there is a point or two difference in that particular thing, that school chose to use apprentice. I only gave you proficient and distinguished. So that would be the discrepancy if you see anything like that. Other than that, next month we will dive into the new accountability system, and the district will share our data with you as well as our preschool and the academy at Horizons, because we're all district programs. So we will present together at December meeting. So do you have any further questions until we start with our schools?
I would just like to remind the board and everybody else is that this is a different system than what you've been used to in the past. And it's very, I don't want to say not impossible, but almost very difficult to compare last year's scores with the information that you're getting this year, because it's not the same test, it's not the same type of data, and so you have to be very careful in doing that. Remember, this is last year and this year are baseline scores and on the new system, and so we don't want to compare. It's not apples and apples, it's apples and oranges, so just remember that. Now, there is some similarities, and I'm sure when the principals do their report to you all, they will point out some of the similarities and some things that they feel good about and some areas they want to do. And also remember that we have new principals in most of our buildings have new principals, and just remember where they were last year and where we are this year. So with that, Ms. Brown,
Bloomfield, you're up.
Smile. Good evening. My name's Rodney Morrison, first year principal at Bloomfield Middle School. I was very fortunate last year, from my point of view, I got to finish the year out as the interim principal. We had a little shake-up mid-year there at Bloomfield Middle School, but I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to finish out the school year. So I've already thanked my slide base members for that and the former superintendent for that, but I'm very excited about what's going on at Bloomfield Middle School and what we've got in place. And tonight I'm going to kind of bore you a little bit with some data up front, with some slides, and then kind of go into some next steps with that. So with that being said, reading KPREP, last year we had 17.8% of our student population scoring novice. That's roughly 73 kids that scored novice with our reading KPREP. And then goes around with 24% of our apprentice, with 41% and 16.4 distinguished. So didn't meet where we wanted to go with reading, but out of everything there, our 8th grade group was a group that had the largest novice population. So unfortunately, I sent that to the high school, but just an area that we've got to work on. So with reading KPREP, one of the things we broke down, Ms. Brown, you're correct. Is I broke down also our reading novice and what it looked like with our gap population, because that's a goal of Bloomfield Middle School for this upcoming year, is to close the gap and then also novice reduction. So when you look at our graph, 17.8% of our kids scored novice, but then you can look through the different groups there. One of the mind-blowing things that I see is 26.1% of our males in our school scored novice in reading. So that's definitely a focus of ours for this upcoming school year and what we're going to do there. Math-wise, with our KPREP, we had 19.1% novice school-wide with that, which was up a little bit from previous year. Again, that was roughly 78 kids with scoring novice there on our math KPREP. And again, with our next slide, we're going to look at how it breaks down, 19.1% novice, and then it goes through the different groups there. Again, our male population is scoring more novice than our female population, so it's going to be a focus of ours for this year with our gap group also, and then our disability group there with our math. Our next one is another focus for this year. So the first three, reading, math, and writing. Again, we had 19.4% there novice. Now writing for the middle schools was 8th grade only. The 16-17 KPREP scores. So this is just 8th grade students only. So roughly 27 students scored novice there, with 11 students scoring distinguished, and so still not closing that gap where we get more distinguished than novice. So those are our writing scores. Again, with writing being a focus of ours this school year, kind of broke down into our gap groups there. So 19.4 overall, but then as you can tell, our disability students with IEPs was an issue for us at Bloomfield Middle School last year. Again, our male population scoring novice at a higher rate than our female population there. So that's, again, another focus for us. The next two slides are just going to be the other parts of the test. Social studies, again, 8th grade only was tested in that area. 10.1% novice, so that was roughly 14 of our 8th graders scored novice there. 12.2% scored distinguished, which was a congratulations for our social studies. Bloomfield has been very blessed in years past. We had a strong social studies teacher there in the 8th grade, and we went from 5.7% distinguished up to 12.2% distinguished last year. So we made great gains in that area. So very tickled and very happy with that information. And then the last one was language mechanics, and it's almost a perfect pie shape here. Almost 25% in every category, 25.5 in novice, and just kind of going around and ending up with distinguished 24.8% with that information. Again, that was 6th grade information. What we're currently got this year, this is our MAP scores that we just took here in the fall. As you can tell, this is school-wide. Novice, we had 13.6% of our student body score novice. That's 55 students. With that, I did a comparison with what our current students did compared to what they did as 6th and 7th graders last year, who are current 7th and 8th graders. So our current 7th graders, there are 15 out of 136 kids scored novice. That's 11% scored novice. That's down 5% from last year. So we've already seen some great growth there. Just got to keep that trend going. Also in 8th grade, there was 22 out of 136 that scored novice, and that's 16%, still a little high, but it's down from 17% last year. So it showed growth there as well, comparing the two student bodies there. Math, which is an area of ours across the school there. Novice, 13.6% of our student body, 52 students, scored novice, whereas 138 apprentice, 154 proficient, and then distinguished there being 38 students, which is 9% of our, almost 10% of our student body. But again, comparing, we had 22 out of 133 current 7th graders that scored 16.5%. That's up from what they did as 6th graders, so that's a focus area of ours. And then our current 8th graders are 17 out of 128, which is 13%, which is down a couple percentage points. So just looking at reading, math, and math, 3 out of the 4 components, we showed growth already this school year. So we see a positive trend that we in our school. So kind of focus for Bloomfield Middle School, being a brand new principal, even though I've been at Bloomfield Middle School for years, one of my main focuses was school culture and climate. Not only for the faculty, but for our students. We have 10 new teachers to our building this school year. So we went back to an implementation of PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Support, just to get school-wide expectations, because we did see an increase in discipline referrals last year of about 120 compared to the year before. So we wanted to go back, just making sure we're all on the same page, especially with our new folks coming into the building. Rapport building among staff was crucial because we had a major construction over summer, so we didn't get to get in the building as much as we wanted, but just trying to build a rapport with our staff. And then last year we started with a Teach Like a Champion, and 2 of the components out of that book that I really wanted to focus on, and we started last year when I took over, was Threshold, and that's just meet and greet the students at the door and getting them excited about coming into our classrooms and knowing those kids care and they're greeted by their teacher every day was one of the main strides that I wanted to build there. And then also a strong start, so when kids come into the classroom, they immediately get seated and then they have their bell ringer to start, and then their I can statements leading that instruction for that day. So that was one of the things we focused on. Novice reduction, one of the main things that I wanted our staff to really focus in on now is name and claim these students in all content areas, not just seeing a number like I showed you, but actually knowing Rodney Morrison is a novice in this area and he needs assistance, and this is what we're going to do for him, and coming up with an individual plan for those students as well. Gap closure, as I explained earlier, is another one. Identify these students based on KPREP data. And then our academic focus is all content, but with the additional attention on reading, writing, and math, because that was kind of our 3 points that we really needed to improve on. Parent engagement is something we struggle with my entire tenure there, so we're trying to change some things that we're doing this school year to get more parents involved. We're doing a parent-teacher conference in 2 weeks that we typically do, where they're just going to come in and talk to staff. Our KPREP Awards Night is something different. In years past, it was more convenient for us. We did that during the school day where we invited people in, but we're changing that, and we're going to do that at night to get parents and allow grandparents, community members come in and celebrate that, and we're going to recognize all students that scored proficient distinguished on KPREP. So we changed that up a little bit. Going to continue with our student-led conferencing. Is basically where the kids get to present data to their parents. So it's the kids owning their data, and then they're presenting that information throughout their tenure at Bloomfield Middle School to their parents on KPREP and math assessments, and also with their grades and any kind of class assessment. So we're going to continue that. We had a lot of success with that over the years. And then just working with our Frisky, Ms. Harrison, to provide services to address individual needs for kids that need something, we can get that for the kid. Another focus, of course, is writing. You've seen our scores there. So we're trying to implement where we get quality writing across all contents and grade levels, even though it was only assessed there in the 8th grade, but we firmly believe it starts 6th grade and continues through, and not trying to put all the pressure on our 8th grade staff with that. So we're trying to get that across. And then in response to intervention, we're targeting students who are at the 20th percentile or lower, and then place these students in intervention classes and get them the assistance that they need with that. Basically, just talking about going a little bit further in depth with novice reduction. We've identified the student scoring novice on the 16-17 KPREP test and fall math assessment. We focus our weekly PLCs to review student data, review formative and summative assessments, align standards to rigorous activities and assignments, get our learning targets posted and referenced throughout the class period a couple times to make sure, and also make sure it's aligned with standards. And then individual and small group instruction to really focus in on that group of kids that we need to kind of assist a little bit more. And we're going to do that with an instructional assistant. We have a student worker from the high school, and then also our instructional coach as well will be taking part in that. Gap closure, focus on targeting students that are a few points away, just not in the novice category. We have kids sitting in the apprentice category that just needs a little boost to get proficiency. Same thing with proficient to distinguished. So we want to focus on several different categories there, not just the novice. Continue the implementation of MDC, LDC, and PBL activities in each semester. Lesson plans, this is something new that we're going to. We're going to start going to a Google lesson plan and having those teachers submit those through Google Docs, and that to be monitored by our leadership team and give our staff feedback and support. That way we're making sure we're meeting not only the student needs, but we're helping grow our teachers as well in that area. Again, going into individual and small group instruction to help those students with the gap closure in all areas. Writing, in order to reduce novice and increase proficiency, we're going all ELA middle school teachers will work with the leadership team in the areas of lesson planning, formative assessments, implementation of LDC modules and rubrics. Students will be tracked and targeted based on individual need. And then also the implementation of content PLCs. And that's something we're going to be implementing now is currently all of our PLCs with our master schedule. We have grade level PLCs with 6th, 7th, and 8th, but my enrichment staff, the way the master schedule is built this year, we don't have time for them to meet. So we're implementing content PLCs twice a month after school to focus in on that as well to get more hands on deck there. And this is last picture. This is just us. This is something we did this summer as we all went and got our Bloomfield Middle School shirts, and this is the staff that we've got. And like I said, I'm very proud to be the principal of this group of teachers and instructional people that I have at Bloomfield Middle School. Any questions?
So on each one of the slides of tests, you pointed out the male numbers, which, I mean, it's obvious.
Yes.
On every one. Do you have any kind of like gut check feeling yet for why the male population is spiked higher than female, or?
Well, we had turnover not just with administration, but last year our 8th grade and our 8th grade male population was one of the worst. And you know, I don't have it pinpointed, but I think it actually was interest. They're trying to get writing activities that with the interest of the male population. Maybe when we go into our reading activities, make sure we're pulling in some of the genres that they want to read about, and I think that will help us.
And the first one I think that we looked at, I believe, was on the reading piece. And of course, you know, if we stereotype educational data, typically it is males do poor in the reading areas and females do poor in the mathematics areas. I mean, we want to do the stereotype.
Right.
And I found it interesting that on all of them it was males.
Yeah, it was.
And your comment there, I mean, I've got an 8th grade male, and whenever the conversation of reading comes up, it's a challenge. And I'm sure he probably reads at a pretty good level, but to him, reading is just a task that he has to deal with. So. Maybe. Yeah, well, maybe if it's about Xbox, or the Xbox One X, maybe that will get his attention.
The latest and greatest,
Yeah,
yes.
the latest and greatest. That's all we've heard the past months.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bree, before we go on to the next thing, I just want to ask, the administrators that are still left, take a look around at the other administrators in this room if you would. Just take a moment and look at who all else you've got on your team. I think possibly this is one of the strongest building level administrative teams in the 9 years that I've been on the board that we've had.
Damon, I'll say, I've been doing this for 43 years, and we have as good, and especially as good a young bunch of building level administrators in this county. And, with all the changes and turmoil you came up and you got to this point with these people, I think is a testament of this district's resiliency and for these people, and I congratulate them.
You look, and again, you look around the room and you see some folks that maybe were a peer administrator the year before, or maybe were a classroom or an instructional coach, educator before, and now you're sitting as that administrator in the building. The resources that are among this team, the ability to rely upon each other, and I've always thought the hardest thing for any human, forget it being a teacher, any human to do is to say, I don't really know, can you help me? And especially as educators, because we're supposed to know the answers, right? And because the kids always go, well, Mr. Bradley, what's the answer? And whenever they were in your classroom, but now we've got these administrators sitting in this room that are willing to look at each other and go, I don't really know what the answer is, can you help me? And it's very refreshing to see that. And also, while everybody doing a great job, I have to point out to you, Ms. Drury and Ms. Hanloser, both of you all walked into a hornet's nest. I'll just put it simply like that. And the culture change just in the 3.5 months, 4 months of instruction, plus the time that you all spent, before classes start. That's tremendous. And while maybe the test scores aren't where, the assessment scores aren't where you want them, those are going to come. It's going to come for New Haven as well. It's going to come for any of the schools that you just don't, Ms. Morrison, it's going to come for Bloomfield. I know you're not happy either. But there were challenges that, you walked into and that you grabbed hold of as well. So it's very heartening to see such a strong, like you said, one of the strongest group of administrative team across the district. And I get to see a lot of districts in central Kentucky, and I think we've got one of the best ones.
And I hope all of you all, because as a board member, and I know all of us can say this, each presentation there was something that stood out. And I know you all collaborate together, and I'm glad you all see that other schools, what you found important on one school, you're taking it to your school. Or you're seeing, or at least this group, to me, you all don't mind sharing. We've had some that really didn't like to share. And this group is different because you all don't mind to share. Just like Tanya, I heard you say Wes helped you, and other elementaries, you help each other, and that's the way it should be. This thinking that you're the only one in the whole you're not by yourself, because we have 3 or 4 schools that need help. Are just now getting back on their feet. And if you can go from there and say, I do need help, then that's to me, that's 2/3 of the battle, is to get the help. And because we're only helping the kids. I don't care, I care about you all, don't get me wrong. But the kids is what counts here. It's not us, it's you all and the kids, and those kids deserve it. We deserve to give Nelson County students the best education we can give them. And being funds are going to be restricted, I know that, you know that from just listening to our governor. And, we just have to pull it, we have to make it work, we have to pull it together and make it work. And I do appreciate all you all help, believe me, I appreciate it.
But
And
you're
I
going to
thank
see
you.
some positive changes. Go visit New Haven, see what
Oh, I
there's so
have.
much love in that building. Go visit Foster Heights, Oak Kentucky Home, every one of you. There's so much love, and they love their students. They don't do it for nothing
Yeah.
but pure love.
I know it when I walk in
And
those
it's great to see
buildings.
those buildings now thriving
Yes.
and positive energy and kids learning. I love to see that. People are respectful and
Yes.
love that. So thank you all.
Just keep up the good work.
And we also need to thank Ms. Williams and Ms. Brown for their
Yes.
leadership in this process also. So
Thank
we've
you,
kind of
thank
all
you.
been together.
There's a quiet force behind the scenes. aren't there?
Yes.
Sometimes, what was that, sometimes quietness happens.
If it's a UK ball game day, it's not.
That's right.